Hello and welcome into Illini Drive. We got the full crew in tonight. Isaac Trotter's your host. I'm joined alongside Brian Binns, Eli Schuster. We got a new producer today. Alex Aguilera is filling in for Tatiana Perry, who is taking a day off. Alex, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be back with the whole crew.
Awesome. Yeah, Alex, if you didn't know, Alex ran this.
Think about that. This is the old Tuesday, Thursday crew.
Yeah,
Alex ran this show last year. We put up a good show, especially that second semester last year. We really gelled as a group, and now we're back and ready to go. Eli Schuster covers Illinois and everything else for the Daily Illini. He's a sports editor over there. Brian Binns covers Illinois basketball and Illinois volleyball for the Daily Illini. Good to have them there. Obviously, I cover Illinois football for Illini Inquirer. And we got a full show for you planned today. Illinois football will take on Iowa and Senior Day on Saturday at 2:30. You can watch that game on Big Ten Network, and we'll definitely break that down. Illinois basketball, fresh off a loss to Georgetown, 88-80 on Tuesday night. Illinois played well at times. And then they've had so many games where in Brad Underwood's tenure, they've had a lead or been within one possession within 2 minutes of the end and just can't pull it out. And Illinois loses 88-80 in a good game. Georgie Bashanchvili and Ayo Dosunmu, two Illinois freshmen, looked really, really good. And we'll break that down as well. Also want to touch on some NFL and some NBA. Brian Binns, your Seahawks play tonight against the Packers. How confident are you in the Seahawks getting that big win?
I don't know if I'd say I'm confident, but I am excited. I think this is a big opportunity for them, and I think they'll play well.
Awesome. Boys, Illinois basketball. You two were covering the game. I ended up sneaking in and watching it with a friend. Did not have to cover it that night, but they go play a solid Georgetown team who had two freshman guards. They had a big inside who has an NBA prospect, and Georgie Bashanchvili played really, really well on Jesse Govan. I think he held him to 12 points and 6 boards, while Georgie Bashanchvili ends up with 12 points, has 4 assists, has 4 or 5 rebounds. Played pretty well. Ayo Dosunmu scores 25 points with Trent Frazier out. I know it was a loss, but I couldn't help but leaving the State Farm Center and feeling slightly encouraged by what I saw. I know there's issues, but the fight that this team has, the determination that this team has, and for this team to be able to play without Trent Frazier was pretty impressive, in my opinion, Brian.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, going into the game, we didn't know Trent wasn't going to play until about half an hour before the game, and when we did hear, I mean, that changed all of our expectations. For me, personally, I was like, I still think they can beat this Georgetown team, but without Trent, it's going to be really hard. And I think we saw why it's hard without Trent, because he's their best offensive playmaker as far as creating shots for himself, creating shots for other people. We saw struggles from Aaron Jordan. We saw struggles from Kipper Nichols at times. It's just a different team, and obviously without your best player, it's going to be a different team. And even Brad Underwood talked about, even for guys who had good games, the team was still affected, and those players were still affected. The fact that Andres Feliz had to start and didn't come off the bench, Georgetown outscored our bench by 22 points. So just missing a player like that is huge, and it doesn't only just affect the starters, it affects the bench as well.
Obviously, offense is a big deal, but I felt like Illinois offensively was fine. It was the defense that really struggled, and Illinois also got killed on the boards as Georgetown out-rebounded Illinois 25-9 in the second half. And Brad Underwood talked about after the game how Trent Frazier kind of leads the charge as one of their best on-ball defenders. How big was his absence, Eli? Like, how big can we put it into measure? Like, if he plays, they win, or
no? I think so. For me, I said before the game that I didn't think Trent Frazier being out was going to be that big of a deal for this team, only because what was going to kill them and what really mattered for them at the end of the day was going to be how they played in the paint and how they played inside. And that's why it was going to be important for Georgie to have a big game. I mean, that's what it came down to for me, was for him to have a big game. And then also, obviously there for warm-ups, you see Adonis warming up, and then you go, okay, Adonis is going to play. It was going to be important for him to be a role player. And he didn't look good, and that's okay. I mean, that's understandable. He didn't look conditioned. He looked tired out there. I would have maybe even given Samba a shot out there for 2 minutes just to see what he could bring, only because of the fact that you have that size. Adonis when Adonis was out there, that's when they were really breaking down this Illinois team. Adonis just didn't look great, and I think he will be. I think he'll be solid. I think he'll be a good rebounder for this team. But that really struggled. Georgie was their only option out there, and obviously he got into foul trouble. When it goes to your question about Frazier, the only reason I think that Frazier would have helped at this game is because I think he would have taken some of those shots in crunch time over Kipper Nichols, and that's a whole other thing that we can get into. I obviously have thoughts on that, but I think that Trent, the absence wasn't that big of a deal. When you have Felice and you have Ayo Dosunmu, a guy who could put up 25 points, obviously, when Trent's not playing, that's something he can do. The thing that's going to hold Ayo Dosunmu back this year, honestly, is Trent Frazier. They're going to work well together, but the reason that Dosunmu's points per game isn't going to be that high this year is probably because Trent Frazier's playing with them, and that's a great problem to have. But I think that in this game, the guard play and Frazier's absence on the offensive side didn't hurt you. On the defensive end, maybe, but I think, if Frazier's going to pick your pocket maybe a couple times, but at the end of the day, it's the inside game. And Illinois just still doesn't have that yet. Georgia's going to be good, but they don't have enough there yet.
And they didn't have enough rebounding, too, down the stretch. And Aaron Jordan is a guy that you're supposed to count on for rebounds. He only had 3 rebounds. DeMonte Williams, as Underwood has talked about multiple times, is one of their best rebounders as a guard. He didn't have a single rebound. And Illinois got beat on the boards overall, 39-26.
This Georgetown team, though, it's tough because, Jordan, I think probably Jordan should have had a couple more rebounds. DeMonte, though, and when you're starting to rely on some of these guards for rebounding, and Dosunmu is also a decent rebounder at times. He had a good rebounding game in his first game, and so some of these guards can grab those for you. But in a game like this, especially when you're going after Govan, a guy who's for Georgetown, great. When you're going against a big guy like that, what you really need at the end of the day is just to have a big guy that's comparable. You need Georgie. You need Georgie to be in there and get the boards. You need Adonis to be able to be in there and get the boards because he can't. And Jordan would be nice. Jordan has that size, and maybe he can shift in there and try to grab some. But at the end of the day, it's about the big men in this game, and that's who you need to get the boards.
Illinois, this was the 9th game in Brad Underwood's tenure here. Illinois has had a lead within 2 minutes or been within a bucket within 2 minutes, and they lost it. And Brad Underwood's only been here, a year and 2 months, or a couple months. And as the game went down the stretch, Kipper Nichols had multiple opportunities to put you ahead. You're down by 1 point. The crowd is going crazy. Ayo Dosunmu gets a steal on the inbounds play. Hits to Kipper on a 2-on-1, and Kipper goes up soft for a missed layup. And then he misses
Dunk the ball.
And then he misses a 3 on the next possession on a pretty good look that he had from 3. And then on the following possession, he tries to take a charge at about the 13 feet in front of the basket. And that's an and 1, and Georgetown goes up 4, and Kipper Nichols fouls out of the game. When you talk about this Illinois team getting over the hump, Brian, what do you take from this? What do you learn from this game down the stretch?
And you talked about the 9 games, and obviously 8 of those being last year. And I think what we saw last year was that it was a team that just had no one that had been there before. No one really knew what to do in crunch time. You had DeMonte Williams throwing the ball over the court. You had Trent Frazier trying to go one-on-one every possession. You had basically just guys who had no idea what to do in a college game down the stretch to win the game. And I think, again, you kind of saw that a little bit against Georgetown because, again, a lot of the guys out there had no idea how to win a college game down the stretch. And that's why it was so unfortunate to see Kipper Nichols struggle so much, is because that's the one guy on this roster you kind of look in well, you played a lot last year, and you were in a lot of these tight games last year, and then you're the kind of guy that a lot of these people are probably looking to with Trent out, with Trent not in there. A lot of those guys are probably looking to you to make those plays down the stretch, even when it probably should have been someone like Ayo maybe trying to make some more stuff happen with him with the ball. But, at the end of the day, you got good looks. Brad Underwood said in the post-game press conference he had no problem with any of the looks they got. I had a couple problems with some of the looks they got at the very end of the game. But as far as the looks that Kipper Nichols got, a layup, that's a very high percentage shot. An open 3, that's a pretty high percentage shot for Kipper Nichols. And, it's just tough because this is a problem you're going to have as long as Trent is out. You're probably not going to have someone down the stretch that's going to be able to close.
You bring up a great point. And you say how last year, the reason you saw this last year was because you had a lot of players that hadn't been there before. And you have the same thing this year because all of those players left and you have all new players, you all freshmen who haven't been there either. But that's why at the end of the game, you go to someone who has been there, right? And that's why you go to Kipper Nichols and they're giving him the ball. And he still can't get it done. And I think the part of that, though, is that he hasn't been there either. Because he was on the team with a bunch of guys who hadn't been there. So I think that I had a lot of issue with the end of that game and the way it was not necessarily managed, but the way it was managed by Kipper Nichols. I just think there was too much reliance on him. And I think that I turned around the 4-minute mark. I was sitting there, and we were all sitting around in the same area, but I turned to the guy sitting next to me, and what I talked to him about was, I said it was around probably 5. I would say the 4:30 mark. It was probably around the 4-minute mark, 4:30 maybe. And I lean over and I said, all right, this is going down to crunch time, and I don't want Kipper Nichols in. And I was like, and I know that sounds crazy, but I said I just don't. I can't trust Kipper Nichols right now in this situation. And I just had that bad feeling about it. And then he comes in, and the first thing that goes wrong is that he doesn't go over nearly aggressively enough to the loose ball. And Brad Underwood brought that up in the press conference. And he wasn't happy with that. And McClung takes it, and he gets a momentum-shifting dunk because that guy could throw it down. And so he goes and he throws down a great dunk, and that shifts the momentum. And then, Kipper makes all those other mistakes too. But that really bugged me, was that first mistake.
Yeah, because after that, it kind of snowballed.
Yeah.
Well, and it was so interesting because at the beginning of the game, when Trent Frazier's out, I thought that Aaron Jordan and Kipper Nichols would be the two guys you can count on to step up, the veterans, and they know, hey, Trent's out, I got to step up and do something. It wasn't. It was Ayo Dosunmu and Georgie Bashangtvili.
Well, I think
Kipper didn't even score till get his first bucket till 3 minutes left in the first half.
What's tough is I think that we all keep getting tricked to trust Kipper when we haven't. And I like Kipper. I think he's a great player. I've said on this show that I think he's the most NBA body athletic player on this team, and I still think so. But I think at the end of the day, we keep kind of getting tricked that he is that guy, and he's not that guy yet, and because he hasn't proven it yet. And you can say those 32 points, 31 points, whatever it was against Iowa, last year. Oh, how about that? That should show you. And yeah, that's a great game.
It shows that he's so
It shows that
inconsistent.
he can do that.
Right.
But it hasn't shown me that we should rely on him to do that yet.
That's why it's the most frustrating, because you see the upside. You see the NBA, a possibility of Kipper Nichols being an NBA prospect, and then you see effort like that. And you see a missed layup at the rim where you don't go dunk the ball with the crowd's roaring.
I think dunking thing, a lot of people were tweeting that about, dunk the ball. And I think, sure, he could have gone and done that. I don't mind a layup there, but you have to go up fancier with your layup, because look at every single layup
or go get contact.
Well, sure, but I think that at the end of the day, I mean, look at every single layup that Ayo Dosunmu takes as a freshman, right? And he does drive in a lot of times contested, but even when he's going on a fast break, he's not contested at all. He goes up and he moves the ball in the air around a little bit. He tries to fake you out in case there's anyone behind him. He shifts the ball.
Off the
he goes high. Yeah, he does something different than just going for the normal layup, because if someone's tailing you from behind, they're not going to be able to get their hand on it. And so, Kipper went up so nonchalantly on that layup, and that's the problem for me. Yeah, you could throw it down, you could dunk it. That's going to be a momentum shifter, what have you. But I think the real point of it is just none of the play was aggressive. None of it was aggressive enough. And he didn't go after the loose ball aggressive enough. He didn't lay it up aggressive enough. And when he took the three, he had kind of, maybe that was even too aggressive at that point. Right. I don't know, because I said that he had about 5 seconds left on the clock when he had that three. The pass from Ayo wasn't right where it needed to be, and I think Kipper could have made a dribble move or something real quick to set himself up with maybe even a better take than what he had, because he just shot it right away, right when he had it, and it wasn't put in the best spot, and he kind of shot it over the guy that was in front of him, and I just didn't love the take. I think with 5 seconds left on the clock, you could have gotten something.
Illinois gets big time performances from Georgie Bashangtvili, 5 for 11 from the field, 1 for 3 from beyond the arc, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 12 points. He struggled though with the offensive fouls on setting screens, and he had 3 of his 4 fouls were that. And you saw how important it was for him to be on the floor, because when he was off the floor, Illinois really struggled. But that's a heck of an evaluation by this Illinois coaching staff. Georgie Bashangtvili had little to no high major offers. Minnesota was barely involved with him, and he looks like a Big Ten starter right now from the very beginning, which is an extremely encouraging sign. Yeah,
I said too during that game, another thing that I kind of thought about during that game, and it was in the first half. I sat there and I said, man, teams are already kicking themselves that they didn't go hard enough at Georgie. At the end of the day, they're already kicking themselves. It's 2 games into the season, but it's because you can just tell that he brings more than just kind of the talent he has. Yes. Obviously, he has more talent than anyone kind of thought he had. Other than Brad Underwood.
Finke right away.
Yeah, other than Brad Underwood, he has, no one thought he had this much talent. But it kind of goes to show you that even, we talk to people and hear about Georgie and they don't know he can shoot a 3, before the season started. Like, people just didn't know about this guy. And he has much more talent than a lot of people realize. But it's even more important than that. It's really the swagger he brings and the intensity he brings that this Illinois team hasn't seen in quite some time. Because let's think about kind of their key players, their key guys down the stretch, like for the past handful of years. I mean, you could throw it to Michael Finke was a guy they wanted to be that, right? Finke was never that intense. He was never that personality.
Ron Black had his moments.
Sure, but he was nowhere like that. Right. And he wasn't that personality. Malcolm Hill, absolutely not, right? Malcolm Hill, great player, but But not another big man that was solid for them for a little while. Maverick Morgan, right? Maverick never had that, and you can just kind of go down the list, and it's a while before you find a player that had the swagger.
Even Brandon Paul and DJ Richardson
Brandon Paul
and Tracy
great,
Abrams didn't really have that.
No, great player. Tracy Abrams definitely didn't have it. I mean, there's no way. I mean, he had a swagger to him, but not on the
Nana
court.
Didn't have stuff like that.
No, and
Ravonte had a little bit.
Brandon Paul
Rice had a little.
Brandon Paul, nice dude, great guy, but he didn't have that. He didn't have that swagger to him, and some people say that dog in them, right? Like, and at the end of the day, this team has not had that in a really long time.
And that's why they haven't been good in a long time.
Exactly.
And I think they got two of them because Ayo Dosunmu plays with as much fire as I've seen from a freshman.
I think he
point
plays
guard.
with fire. He's emotional for sure. He's an emotional player, which is good. And Ayo's maybe that guy who just kind of like randomly like a Michael Thomas who randomly does a touchdown celebration for the Saints, and you're like, oh, I didn't know he had that in him. And you're like, Ayo's kind of similar, where you're like, he might do something, you'd be like, oh, I didn't know he had it in there. That's cool. But I think with Ayo, he's an emotional. He pumps up his team. I don't see him getting in anyone's face, and that's fine because you have now Georgia to get in someone's face. I mean, that's what you need. That player. You need that player. Every team has had that player in the Big Ten, and Illinois hasn't.
Binns, I remember you and I were talking about Ayo's and what we thought and expected from him. I didn't expect 21 points a game. I didn't expect 25 here. How much has he exceeded your expectations through 2 games?
Well, I think the big thing that's jumped out to me is the 3-point shot looks insane. I mean, he's hitting pull-up threes, and he had the first play of the game their first field goal of the game against Georgetown was they got in transition. They just throw it to him. He takes one dribble and shoots a pull-up three with the guy in his face, and I was like, he's here. Like, this is the guy we signed up for. Like, he's got the jumper.
He's a 5-star point guard.
He's got the defense. He's got the ball handling. He's got the finishing at the rim, and it's just insane because with Trent in against Evansville, you saw a very different Ayo. You saw, I mean, yes, he had 18 points, but he also had 6 rebounds and 4 assists. Trent goes out, and all of a sudden, Ayo's like, all right, I have to be the lead scorer, and so he puts up 25. Yes, the rebounding and the assists fall off.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's just naturally what's going to happen when you take on a bigger scoring
And
role.
he had a couple nice passes that could have been assists.
Yes.
They just missed the shot.
Yeah, you know what I love about that too is just how great of a role player he is because of the fact, and that's why he could go to the NBA even sooner than maybe we all thought, because of the fact that it doesn't matter if he's the number one guy. It doesn't matter if he's the number one scorer, because if Trent's in the game and he's scoring, he'll go grab his boards. And I know we're 2 games into the season, whatever. You know, it'll be really interesting to see this Maui tournament and see, you know, how does he play against some of these other big name guys. But I think what you see from Ayo is his ability to adapt to nearly any situation that he's in, and that's so rare for a freshman to have.
And point guard.
And yeah, and you know, he had a great game against Evansville. I mean, he had a great game, and a lot of it came kind of in garbage time at the end in terms of basketball. You know, garbage time in basketball, you're up by a ton. He's kind of just getting his layups. He's kind of doing a little bit of a show for everybody. But he still comes into the press conference after, and he talks about how excited he was and how happy he is to be here and to be playing for Illinois.
And that's the other thing about Ayo is he carries himself very maturely. And I think that shows in his game as well. We were talking about how
I think every player in the NBA that's successful, you go back to their college days or when they were freshmen in college or go back to when they were high schoolers, and it's like they go and, you know, they showed unreal maturity. And that's something that you see immediately from Ayo. A guy who goes into the locker room after the loss to Georgetown and says, you know, that's on me. I really wish we could have gotten the guys the W. And then Brad Underwood says, are you kidding me? You know, it's not on him at all. But that's an incredible level of maturity. And it's not even, I think, you know, just kind of bowing down to Ayo already. It just is. At the end of the day, it's a really good sign for not just Illinois, but for Ayo's future.
DeMonte Williams scores 11 points on just 4 shot attempts, added a couple assists. Alan Griffin knocked down a 3. Tevian Jones played 8 minutes, had 3 rebounds, and 1 bucket in transition. What'd you make from the wing play from Illinois that Illinois got?
Alan Griffin, I just want to say right now, that man deserves more playing time, and I think he'll get it. Yeah. But I from the moment I saw him in the exhibition game, and I don't really ever take him a lot away from that, but I love the play that he brings, and I think that he is another one of those guys on this team that just kind of knows the game really well. He's intelligent about the game.
Winner.
But he also has more offensive ability than like DeMonte does. DeMonte is comparable in the sense that his IQ just seems up there. And he just seems like someone who can kind of do it all. And I think Alan Griffin can actually do it all too. We saw him get some nice rebounds and go back and forth with Georgie in that game for one possession, and that was a lot of fun. But he's going to be a scorer, that guy. I mean, he's going to be a great shooter. And I think he deserves more time even I don't care what game it is, you have a hard non-conference schedule, give that guy more time because I think he's gonna surprise you.
Yeah, and the thing about Allen, I think, is the more time he gets, the better he'll be. Because right now, it really feels to me like he's still kind of feeling out what his role is on the team. Like he really isn't aggressive off the dribble. He's before the half, he just kind of got mixed up.
I have to shoot it. Yeah,
and I think as the season goes on, and once they get their full complement of players, once De La Rosa gets healthy, once they get Trent back, then the rotations will solidify, and I'm sure he'll find his.
He should
role
be a routine second unit guy that comes in and gets a good amount of playing time. Yeah,
the guy I need to see more of is Tevian Jones, and I think he showed me a lot on Tuesday, where he looked pretty bad in my opinion against Evansville. I mean, yes, he had some nice moves, but that was Evansville, and I was really excited to see what he did against Georgetown, who's a big team, who's a long team, who's an athletic team, and I thought he did really well. He had a lot of minutes out there where he was playing that small ball 4 or even the 5 position when they didn't have any of their big men in. But, I mean, this is the guy who's the X factor for this team. If he is able to become a real rotation player for you, even a starter down the road, if Aaron Jordan continues to play like this against good teams, I don't want to see him out there anymore. I'm sorry, I know he's a senior, but I can't be watching you have 1 point and get bullied on the defensive end every time down the floor.
Tevian Jones just oozes potential, and it feels a little like Trent Frazier last year. It takes him a little bit of time at the beginning, but once it clicks, could click in a really, really
and the one
big
thing,
way.
And the funniest thing is when Kipper did miss that layup, I had a mini flashback to earlier in the game. Tevian had a very similar possession where he caught the ball on the wing, took one dribble, and finished through contact at the rim, and I was like, if only that had been Tevian. And I was really disappointed down the stretch when Kipper fouled out that Tevian didn't come in, because I do feel like he gives you a lot of the same stuff that Kipper does. And he's just a guy that, I mean, I know that this is just a classic me thing, like a classic Brian Vince type player. He's big, he's long, he's athletic. These are the kind of guys Illinois needs, and they need them to be good. And you put him alongside Georgia, and you put him alongside Iowa and Trent. That's a pretty formidable defensive core you got going.
I will say one thing, we can lead this into the break if you want, but I think that there is one instance in that game where I did question one thing that Underwood did during the game, and it was one lineup that he had in there. And I think Isaac and I, we talked about it a little bit, but at one point in the game, he has his son in there, he has Underwood in there, which I'm not saying he shouldn't be in there, but he has Underwood in there, he's got Alan Griffin in there, he had Kipper Nichols in there, he had Aaron Jordan in there, and DeMonte. And I just think that was a moment in the game that I look back on now, and because they were in there for a little bit of time, and I look back on that.
The last 2 minutes of the first half.
And I look back at that moment now, and I kind of just question that. And I know it's about finding the right unit, but on paper, that unit just doesn't seem right to me. And I think that and I understand playing small. He's going to play small plenty of times
Part
this
of that
year.
had to do with foul trouble.
True. He's going to play small plenty of times this year, and I understand it's the last 2 minutes of the half, but I think that was a little bit of a strange move, right. and I would have. I don't know. I would have done it a little bit differently. You don't have that one playmaker in there. So
when we get back, we're going to delve into more Illinois basketball. We're going to give our Illinois MVPs through a first couple games. I feel like we could go a lot of different ways with that, but stick with us on Illini Drive, WPGU 107.1. Welcome back to Illini Drive. Isaac Trotter joined alongside Brian Binns, Eli Schuster, and our new producer, Alex Aguilera. He's not new. He did it all the show last year, but good to have him back filling in for Tatiana Perry. We talked a little bit of Illinois basketball in that first segment, and we're going to break it down even more. Through 2 games, who's our Illinois MVP? Who you can rank it in top 3. Io has had a couple. Io's averaging over 20 points a game. Georgie Bashancheville's been fantastic. DeMonte Williams has had his moments. But Benz, who would you say is your MVP? You start with your number 3 player. We'll go 3, 2, 1. You can do all 3 at one time if you want.
All right, if we're going 3-2-1, then I'd say number 3 would be Trent. I think he'd be higher if he would have played against Georgetown, but I mean he's still the team's best player.
I like how we're doing with 2 games, by the way.
Yeah. I would have to say it's Trent. I mean, when he's in there, this team's a different team, so he's my number 3. Number 2 would be Io. He's their second best player. But my number 1 is going to be Georgie because I
completely agree with that.
I think the Underwood talks a lot about how the culture is different this year, and I mean that's definitely a veiled shot at the guys that left, and I think it's an earned shot at the guys that left because those guys I think were part of the problem last year, and I think nothing embodies the culture change of this team more than Georgie, and I think that shows in their intensity on the court. It shows their intensity like during practice. I just think that he's the face of this kind of shift in the culture that Underwood's talking about so much, and that to me, that's the reason why he's the MVP.
Eli, what do you think?
I like that. I like that little that trade of thought there. I think. All right, so I'll go 3-2-1. I think 3. Honestly, I'm going to swap with you. I think 3 is Georgie right now. And I think I'm looking at this strictly from a play standpoint.
Yeah.
I understand the morale, and I'm big on that too. But I think that from a play standpoint, I put Georgie at 3. I think that he's going to be real. I think later, this year he's going to move up probably. He's just really important right now to this team. But 2, I'll put Io at, and then 1, I'll put Trent. I still think Trent's the most important piece to this team because I think that we saw in the Georgetown game that that there is something he brings, and there's a level of versatility that he brings that obviously no one else has. So I think that there's an element on that team that says, no, you kind of need Trent Frazier. I think everything kind of finally comes together for this team when Trent Frazier plays. And it'll eventually be DeSumo for this team that does that, but he's too young right now. And because of Frazier being a sophomore veteran, as it is, who carried the rock last year, he's the single most important piece of this team right now, just because he brings a level of energy and a level of cohesiveness on the court that they otherwise don't have when he's not there.
Yeah, I'm going to mix it up just a little bit. I'm going 3. I'll go Trent. I do think that when he's out on the floor and when he's available, Illinois defensively is a lot better. Trent leads the team in charges taken through the first 2 games. For the exhibition in the first game. He's able to get to help side. And honestly, I feel like being there on help side to take a charge might be Illinois' best post defense just because they are terrible at protecting the rim right now without Adonis De La Rosa. And then I'm going to go 2. I'm going to go Georgie just because his ability when he's on the floor, everything goes so much smoother. Everything defensively is so much smoother. He guards ball screens better than any big Illinois has on the roster. His ability to do multiple things offensively is very, very evident. Good passer, helps the offense click, and when he's off the floor, Illinois desperately needs him. Number 1, I'm going with your 5-star point guard. Ayo Dosunmu. He leads your team in scoring through the first 2 games. I think we saw a little bit of his upside against Georgetown and what he could be eventually, 25 points, and his ability to knock down multiple threes has really impressed me so far early. So that's kind of where I'm at. Alex, what do you think? I know you're at every game. What are you thinking? Who's the Illinois MVP?
I would say actually number 3. I'll throw Andres Feliz in.
There you go. I don't hate it.
That's probably the right choice.
I'm liking what I see from him. I love his aggressiveness at the rim. Honestly, when he drives, that's kind of what I wish Mark Smith would have done.
Absolutely.
Last year, so
that's what everyone thought he was going to do.
Right, that's what everyone thought he was going to do.
Mark Allstark's a better comparison.
Right, but no, I definitely love what I'm seeing from Feliz, from a guy who's a little bit smaller, but I think can hold his own.
He's a dog defensively too, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I love it. So I think he'll be able to hold his own come Big Ten play. Number 2, I would say Georgie. Love the energy that he brings to this team, something that has been lacking for years, as you guys have said before, and then obviously the hometown kid for me, Io. The little intensity that he brings, the little energy that he has, I did kind of see. I saw him play a little bit at Morgan Park. I would see some highlights here and there, so that's that wasn't something very new to me, but just his addition to this team is great.
Now Illinois will head to Maui for an opportunity to play some big-time competition, and they'll open up against Gonzaga, who's going to be in the top 5, probably 3rd or 2nd overall in the country. That'll be on Monday night at around 10:30 Central Time. Then if Illinois wins, take that back. They'd have an opportunity to play Arizona or Iowa State in round 2. Eventually, if they won both games, they could have a chance to play Zion Williamson and Duke and get absolutely shellacked, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But as you go into Maui, what would constitute a good showing in Maui? Is it 1 win or is it going 2-1?
There's only one. First off, I want to say there's only one kryptonite to Zion Williamson, and that is obviously George Vashonishvili. So I want to throw that out there first. If anyone is going to stop that man, it's obviously Georgie. Would that be because maybe he gets Zion ejected for a fight? Who knows? But he would stop him. I just want to put that. Yeah, I just want to put that out there. No, I think the biggest. First off, going to Maui already is a win for you because of. I think that needs to be said right off the bat. I think this team's going to be like 1-4. I think they're probably going to be 1-4 at the end of the day. just because of the fact that it's going to be really hard to win these games. But you going there just to get your name out, the fact that you're up there with these programs. I mean, you're playing against Gonzaga. You're in the same tournament as Duke. You might play against Iowa State, a program's consistently great. Xavier's there. Arizona's there. And then there's Illinois, which seems a little bit out of whack right now for them to be there. But it's really an exciting opportunity for them. The thing I will say is every year at these beginning season tournaments and things like Maui and all this stuff in college basketball, there's always that team that beats someone unexpectedly. So Illinois has that going for them.
So you're saying Illinois is going to beat Gonzaga and Duke?
All I'm saying is that there's always those moments where somebody there's those Michigan crushes Villanova moments, right? Which is that makes a little more sense only because Michigan is as good as they are. But you always have those moments where at the beginning of the year some weird stuff happens. So Illinois has that going for them. I think a win for them is really already just being there. I don't see them winning any of these games. Play close. That's all you could say. Maybe against the Gonzaga game, keep it close for a while. Show that you can compete with those guys. Then the second round, you have a good shot. Of playing against Iowa State and or Arizona, and showing that you can stay close with those guys. If you play Iowa State, you could legit have a chance to win that game.
Illinois has just as much talent as Iowa State, and also Xavier has not shown me much early in the season. If you're matching up with them for your third game, that gives you a chance too. So I kind of disagree with you. I think going to Maui, you have got to get at least one win, in my opinion. You got to go 1-2. You have to be competent. You have to, kind of have to go out there and compete against everybody you play. Benz, what are you thinking? Is 1-2 the standard, or should we expect? Are you wanting 2-1? Do you want to leave Maui with a winning record?
Well, I think to me, the record doesn't matter at the end of the day, because I do feel like after that Georgetown loss, it's going to be really hard for them to make the tournament, because that just like seeing
it's tough to say that already, but
even without Trent in that game, losing to Georgetown is just kind of because Georgetown, yes, they're an up and coming program. I think Patrick Ewing's doing a good job. You can see they're trying to recruit better talent, but I mean, at the end of the day, Georgetown is like a borderline, like they're a bubble team, and the fact that you're losing them at home is not a great sign. And so, to me, it's not about the record at Maui. I think I'm with Eli. It's about what that record looks like. Like, if you go 1-2, but those two losses, you lose by like 40 to Gonzaga and like 20 to Iowa State, and then you beat Xavier by 5. Like, cool, you went 1-2, but like, how close really are you to being where you want to be? But if they go 0-3, they lose by 5 every game, or they lose by 10 every game. Like, that's something I can live with, because to me that says that this program is still getting better, even without the empty wins that you could get by beating like really bad teams.
Yeah, this tournament is just a great opportunity from them from the start, and they kind of already won this just because of the fact that your name is out there, and people are going to be watching these games, and it's the Thanksgiving break, and you're on prime time right now, and people are going to be keeping track of you. So they already won. I would assume was getting his name out there. Trent Frazier's going to have people watching him.
Georgie's going
to.
Nation's going to follow.
I mean, I'm telling you, there's going to be moments throughout this next week where Illinois is making national sports news, and that is a huge win for them.
It's the first
doesn't
time
matter your record.
In a long time.
And it's going to
last time they were.
And it's not just going to be, and it's not just going to be because they get killed by someone, right? And it's the other team getting the news. It's because they're going to be playing in a competitive game, and they have a 5-star point guard who was on national recruiting lists. They have a guy who just is kind of breaking out now. He's going to have his moments with Georgie. And then they have Trent Frazier, who makes, kind of highlight making plays. So it's going to be a lot of fun the next week to watch what comes from this. I don't care about the record. I think that this team has already won this tournament.
Illinois basketball get going on Monday. We're going to take a quick timeout. When we get back, I guess we'll touch on Illinois football just for a moment, just to give you a little bit of a preview of what to expect from Illinois and Iowa. We'll also touch on a little bit of NBA, a lot of stuff going on in the NBA, including Jimmy Butler getting traded, Carmelo Anthony getting dumped by the Houston Rockets, and then a little drama out in Golden State. So stick with us on Illini Drive, WPGU 107.1. Welcome back to Illini Drive. Isaac Trotter, Eli Schuster, Brian Binns, and Alex Aguilera talking a lot of Illinois sports. Talked a lot of Illinois basketball, and we're going to pivot and talk some Illinois football. Illinois gets going with senior night on Saturday at 2:30 against Iowa. Iowa has lost 3 games in a row, and Illinois is coming off a really disappointing loss to Nebraska last week, but they think they have a chance this weekend, and the spread kind of speaks for that itself too.
Okay.
The spread was 19.5 points early, It's down to 13.5 right now as Vegas thinks this game might be a little bit closer. I disagree. I think that Iowa is clearly more talented than you at almost every single spot. They have a clear advantage at quarterback, but Iowa struggles to run the football. They haven't really put up big-time points offensively. Northwestern held them to just 10 points last week, and their starting quarterback, Nate Stanley, is second in the Big Ten with 18 touchdowns, but he's also struggling with a really messed up thumb. They think he might have torn a ligament in that, and that's really affected his ability to throw the ball deep down the field. But, Eli, when you go into this one, where's your confidence meter at that Illinois will stay competitive into the second half?
Did you say that you were uncertain, or you said that you did not agree that it would be close?
I didn't think it would be close.
You think that there's going to be a blowout?
Yeah.
But then you go and you say all those things about Iowa playing close with other teams.
I'm just saying there's a case that Illinois could compete, but I just don't see. I mean, Illinois is giving up 55 points per game in their Big Ten losses this year.
No, absolutely.
No good offense can stay close.
Here we go.
No, absolutely. I think that this game, I don't think Illinois is going to win this game, but I think that this game will be close. I just think that, one, this team is a little bit, well, a lot of it, but this team's a lot different than last year in the sense that these guys have a drive to win. I mean, this team wants to win. You can tell when talking with them. I mean, every single guy that you talk to, and this didn't happen last year, you talked to about this last game and them being in this spot, they all said, we want to win these last two games to get to a bowl game for our guys, like get for our seniors, so they all care about each other more. So that's been a difference. I think that so they will come out and they will play hard this game. I think the problem is, too, and I was not flashy. I was not a flashy team by any means. And they keep things relatively consistent. They got a good defense. They got a solid defense. It's going to be the hardest thing for Illinois. However, Illinois' rushing attack has been great. I still think that'll continue. We've seen that it doesn't really matter who you're playing. The rushing is going to be fine. I think that's how they stay competitive. But I just feel like this game's going to be relatively close. I think that Iowa is a team that's consistent. And the way that they work is they're a team that just kind of pumps out the win at the end of the day. They're not a team that kills you. They're not a team that beats you in a flashy way. That's why they stay close with most of the teams that they play. Last year, Illinois stayed close up until around late in the third quarter.
Illinois played them tough for 2 years in a row.
Exactly. And Illinois hasn't beaten them in quite some time. But
2008.
Yeah, and so at the end of the day, it's Iowa has been a team since 2008 that's been the same way, which is you play them close. They don't beat anyone by a ton. They've had their moments here and there, but they don't beat anyone by a ton, and they just chug out the win at the end of the day. And I think that's going to be the same thing in this game. Illinois will end up losing it in the fourth quarter or so, but that's what I expect to happen. I think the talent eventually wins out, and that's what happens in games with Iowa.
The problem that I have is I just haven't seen an Illinois defense be able to stop anybody that has, a remote amount of talent. We talked about how Maryland struggles offensively, and Illinois just let them run all over them for, 63 points, over 700 total yards of offense. But Illinois' rushing attack is second in the Big Ten, just 45 yards behind Wisconsin for being number one in the Big Ten. And Iowa's rush defense is second in the Big Ten, allowing just 90 rushing yards per game. Illinois has gone over 200 yards in 9 out of the 10 games. What do you expect there? Who's going to have the advantage in that department, or do you think this Illinois offensive line can handle one of the best defensive lines in the entire country?
I think one of the big things as far as the battle between Illinois' offense and Illinois' defense is you're going to have to look at the other side of the ball, because I think it really matters how long Iowa's offense stays out there. If they're able to run the ball consistently on this Illinois defense, that Iowa defense is going to be fresh the whole game. And they're going to score points, so Illinois is going to be down, and so they're probably not going to be able to run the ball as much as they like to. So I really think that yes, seems kind of like a weird cop-out answer, but I do feel like if for Illinois to have a good running game on Saturday, they need to be able to stay close, and to stay close, they need their defense to step up, and they need to. I know that Iowa has struggled to run the ball, but so has a lot of other teams that ran the ball really well against Illinois. So I think it's really important that this defense kind of steps up and plays a little more like they did against
Minnesota.
Minnesota, yes, a little more like they did against Minnesota than they did against Nebraska.
Yeah, and I think, too, all of us in here agreed, and I think especially for me since the beginning of the year, I thought the Nebraska game was a terrible matchup for Illinois.
Terrible.
I mean, we all agreed upon that.
Best play caller in the Big Ten.
It was a terrible game for them. It was a terrible matchup, and everything Nebraska does is what Illinois struggles with, and Illinois does poorly. And so I think what we have seen since the departure of Hardy Nickerson and Lovie Smith take over the defense is a different mindset of this defense. And you can take that, obviously, it's been 2 games. One, you have a big win. One, you have a big loss, again. But you still have a different mindset from these guys when you talk to them. And I think that they feel different about this defense. And so then now you go to Iowa, who offensively is in between the two, really. And especially with a banged up Nate Stanley, right? Especially with a banged up quarterback. So with them being in between, I think Illinois, that's why I think they can keep it close, because I think their defense really does care, and there's been a shift in the locker room mentality for them, and I think that they might play a little bit better than expected against this Iowa team.
Caring is one thing, executing is a different ballgame, and Illinois' freshmen have really struggled execution-wise, and Illinois' defensive line has been manhandled outside of Bobby Roundtree. That'll be a big thing to watch on Saturday. Let's go around the room and give our picks. I'll start off. I think Iowa wins this one 41-24. Illinois will stay close at the beginning, but this Illinois defense just continues to put you in a hole. And if there's a big deficit and this Iowa defensive line can just pin their ears back and get after AJ Bush, I think that's a disaster waiting to happen, because Iowa has 8 guys who can really get after the quarterback, including Edwardsville native AJ Epinesa. Yep, he played with Mark Smith in high school in basketball. So AJ Epinesa leads them in sacks with 7 sacks, and he hasn't started a game for them this year. That's how deep they are. So they're just really, really, really good, and I think that the talent will end up kind of ending the day. And Illinois will start off strong, and Illinois will be in the game, but Iowa will take it 41-24. Benz, what do you think?
I actually think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I don't know why, but I just get a feeling that when Lovie Smith and Kirk Ferentz combine, it's just a punt masterpiece.
I think I 100% agree with you.
I don't know who Iowa's punter is, but I know Blake Hayes is a good punter, so I think we're going to see a lot of punting. I think we're going to see not a lot of scoring. My score prediction is going to be 21-10. I think Iowa wins. I think that they're going to struggle to move the ball with AJ Bush. I think Iowa's going to be able to just get enough going offensively to take the win. I
think this is 100% going to be a low-scoring game. I think that there's going to be snow Saturday. I think that it's supposed to snow Saturday. Yeah, I thought it was.
Nope.
Yeah,
check your forecast.
Yeah,
I just wrote it. It's snowing at night, not in the afternoon. Clear conditions for kickoff.
All right. Well, either way, from what I've seen the past couple of days, is it looks like precipitation is
inbound
for Saturday. But okay, even if we all shake their heads and there's not, I don't care. I think that this game's going to be low scoring. It's going to be freezing. It's going to be I think it's going to be a very old style football game at the end of the day, because I think there's going to be a lot of punting. I don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring.
3 yards in a pound of dust.
I think it's going to be a lot of just kind of, for Illinois, especially ground and pound. And I see it being low scoring. So for me, I think I see 21-7. I say 2017. That's what I'm going to go with. So you're going to see some field goals too.
Who wins?
Iowa.
Alex. Illinois pull the upset on senior night?
This Illinois football team is going to run out onto that field before Thanksgiving and is going to compete with this Iowa team and is going to lose.
Oh, my gosh, Alex, you can't do that to us.
And it's going to lose 45-28. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Iowa has this 3-game skid, but I do think, like you said earlier, they are a completely better team than this Illini football team. But, I think, this offense under Rod Smith is going to, put some points on the board. But, Iowa is just going to roll past the Illini.
We did it, boys. We talked Illinois football for 8 whole minutes. Now we can move on to bigger and better things.
This game's at 2:30. It says on Saturday that it's supposed to be afternoon precipitation. There's a 50% chance.
Afternoon precipitation.
You realize how often the weather changed? I don't care if you wrote about it. It just changed. I just saw it. I checked throughout the day, and now it still says on go to weather.
Rod Smith's offense has been held down one time.
Go to the Weather Channel.
Just go to Chicago and enjoy Chicago.
I'm just saying. I say that I think it's gonna rain on everyone. Just big shake of the head. I don't understand.
Dismissal.
He's like, how dare you say it? It's the weather.
You're gonna be wrong. You are going to be wrong.
In November.
It's going to be sunny and 70. I just think today it's going to be a tough game.
A little nasty.
It's going to be a little nasty.
Benz, what do you make of what's going on in Golden State? There is just Kevin Durant, Draymond Green going after each other. What's going on?
Well, it warms my heart to know that this kind of stuff happens to other teams and not just teams that I follow, because it does remind me a lot of what the reports are at the end of that Seahawks run with the Legion of Boom, about how there's a lot of disconnect between a couple players on that team, a lot of big names on that team, and it just makes me smile knowing that this happens to other dynasties too. It doesn't just happen to my favorite
Is this
one,
the beginning of the end?
I think so for sure, because I think I don't know what the end looks like for the Warriors, because I do think that if Durant leaves, then they're going to keep Clay and they're going to keep Draymond and they're probably going to keep Steph for as long as they possibly
Signed DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah, but I do think that the exciting thing is that Kevin Durant's now going to be a free agent, and he's going to shift the balance of power in the league by where he goes. If he decides to go to the Lakers, that's the team that's going to be probably the best team in the league for the next 3-4 years. If he goes to the Knicks, that's a really exciting young franchise. If he goes to the Clippers, he has a chance to be the face of a team in LA where. I mean, the Clippers right now are one of the better teams in the West, despite all reason why they shouldn't be. So I do think that it's really fun that this is happening because as much as the Warriors have like kind of made the NBA into this like really crazy like soap opera, I think it will be better for them to not just win it every year.
I have a little interesting spot for you, Eli. I know you love your Kemba. What if Kemba, Kristaps, and KD are together in New York with the Knicks? Is that a team that can compete in the East and win it?
I mean, obviously. I think also, though, I've said several times that I think Durant goes to the Knicks. I think I've said that to you. Well, maybe. Who knows? But I think I've said that to you multiple times, that I think that the Knicks are truly in the running for Durant, and because he wants to... He went to Golden State because not only he wanted to win, but because of at that time already, Golden State was a huge market team and face of the NBA. He's going to go to the Knicks, I think, because the Knicks are the same thing. I mean, he knows that he can go to the Knicks. Immediately he goes to the Knicks. The Knicks are now back on the map. I mean, if they're back on the national stage, they're in New York. It's huge for them. So I think that they're truly the greatest contender for him. And I just don't think that after what he does with Golden State and also kind of the hate that he got at Golden State, he would go to a team like the Lakers. I don't see that. I think Clippers and Knicks are big choices for him.
The Nets, you don't buy the Nets?
No, I don't. With the Clippers, at least, he stays in LA, which is big for him. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be tough for them to buy that because of the fact that I think he probably would enjoy a Knicks crowd more than he would enjoy a Clippers crowd. That's true. Yeah, just because LA's split, it's always going to be the Lakers city at the end of the day. But I think that I think Durant is going to leave. I've said that now, I think, for the past 2
3
seasons
months
now. Yeah, I know, but even last season, I was just like, I think Durant's gone. I don't see why he stays. He's not that kind of player. He left the Thunder because he wanted to go win. He did that. I don't think that's all he cares about is winning anymore because he did that, and now he's going to head out. So I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch his free agency. And this Warriors team, though, is not going to go anywhere. They're going to be completely fine. And unless they maybe start losing everybody due to tension, kind of like the Seahawks. But in basketball, it's a lot tougher. So I think everyone's going to be fine.
Well, here's the thing. Now, if Kevin Durant leaves after this year, that opens up a spot, especially at small forward, for a certain Carmelo Anthony to be able to come right in and fit right in with the Golden State Warriors.
Well, also, I wouldn't be... don't anyone rule out, Anthony Davis possibly going to the Warriors. Because of the fact that, let's say Durant leaves, and then they could get rid of Draymond if they really want, and then add Anthony Davis. And so
Clay could leave too.
I think
Clay could even.
Yeah,
leave.
I don't see Clay leaving.
I
don't see that happening. I think there's a lot of talk about that, but I don't know. I just don't.
Between the two,
him.
probably Draymond's more.
I think Draymond's the most likely to leave after Durant. I've always thought Durant was first, and then I think Draymond's second. But I think that this, Anthony Davis going to that team completely likely. But it'll be exciting. Hey, maybe Anthony Davis and
DeMarcus Cousins
and Durant meet up in New York. Who knows? There's a lot possible. Yeah, you're gonna see more of these super team.
That would be the longest
shapes.
team in NBA history. Ntilikina, Durant, Knox, Porzingis, Davis. That's like a mile of arms combined.
Yeah.
Right, Vince is falling in love with the Knicks right in front of our eyes.
I already love the Knicks, but that would just help it even more.
It would be a lot of fun. Yeah.
And NBA has been great so far this year. Jimmy Butler gets traded to the Sixers. We talked a little bit about this on the show on Tuesday. We gave our East power rankings, the top 4. But Jimmy Butler being traded to the Sixers, does this make them the number 1 team in the East? I didn't think they were. I still think that they're around 3. I think they're closer to 4 than they are to 2. But it certainly makes them very, very interesting.
I don't know. I'm really curious to see the next couple of weeks because I think the Celtics are in a weird place right now. And I think that they have a lot of great talent, but at the end of the day, there's one ball, and it might be too much talent because at least on the Warriors, right? The Warriors had an incredible starting 5, and then they had a solid bench, right? I mean, a good bench a really great bench because they're following up such a good squad. But at the end of the day, there was nobody that was sitting on the bench that you said that guy should start over this guy.
Right.
In Boston, there are cases where you could say, I think this person should start
Terry
the
Rozier
game.
should start.
I think that
Right.
this person could play in this game. And and that's way more, that's a good problem to have in college. Mix up your lineups, whatever you have it. Have a bunch of good players. But at the end of the day, in the NBA, that doesn't work. And I think that having too many good players is a problem, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the Celtics kind of combat that. I think you should trade Terry Rozier. I think you should kind of solidify your
Who would be your
guys.
core guys that you build around if you're the Celtics? I mean, Kyrie and Tatum feel like those two, but then after that, I
don't even know if Kyrie. What if Kyrie could go to the Knicks? 100%. We talk about the Knicks, but the Knicks
Right.
are in the market for a lot of players, and it's because you can never talk down New York.
Yeah, I'm saying like who would they build around if they had?
Sure,
the
I don't
choice?
think it's
Who would it
Kyrie.
be?
I think it's obviously Jason Tatum. I don't think there's no other choice. I think that that Kyrie is solid for them, but Kyrie leaving is definitely not out of the question, especially if they keep Terry Rozier around, because then Kyrie's going to say, all right, you believe in this dude to do the work for you, and if so, he can head out. But yeah, no, Jason Tatum's clearly the guy. Jason Tatum's going to be one of the best 5 players of the league in next
3
5 years. Yeah, 3-5 years. So he's incredible, and Boston's got a great piece in him, and they would be dumb not to have him be the star.
Do the Sixers have enough shooting bins? I don't think they do. That's the thing that I look at them and I go, okay, JJ Redick is solid, but Jimmy Butler's not known for his 3-point prowess. Ben Simmons can't shoot a jumper. Markelle Fultz can't shoot a free throw shot. And Joel Embiid is a good 3-point shooter for a big, but they just don't have those knockdown shooters. I think that hamstrings them a little bit because this Milwaukee Bucks team is dangerous and coming for them. They are pushing hard to be a part of that upper echelon in the East, and the Raptors aren't going anywhere, and the Celtics have as much talent or more talent than anybody out there.
Well, I think here's the thing with you talk about the Sixers with shooters, but the Sixers had a ton of shooters last year, and look how that worked out for them. I mean, they had Marco Bellinelli, who's a good shooter. They had Robert Covington last year.
They had Ersan.
Saric.
They had Saric. They had Ersan, and they lost in 5 games to the Celtics without Kyrie Irving, or Gordon Hayward. So at the end of the day, they've already tried putting a ton of shooters around Embiid and Simmons. Now they've decided, let's just go get as many great players as we can. And at the end of the day, Jimmy Butler, Embiid, and Simmons are going to be the best 3 players in almost every game they play this year, outside of when they play like the Lakers and when they play like the Warriors. That trio is going to be able to carry them to at least I'd say the second round.
That trio has to be the best in the East. I mean, that trio does, because I
Right.
think the only other trio that you could put up there would have to be a Celtics trio. And I think that
I think
can't even pick- you
I
can't
would
even
make
pick
I would
3.
make the argument, and this is going to be really weird. I would make the argument that right now I'd say the trio of Kawhi,
Yes.
Kyle Lowry, and Pascal Siakam is the best trio in the East.
okay, no, and I
No,
think
that's
that's
a good
fair. I
point.
mean, Toronto's right up there right now.
But this
so,
is my
sure.
point with the Sixers. I do think that this Butler. When I initially heard this Butler trade, I got mad because I was always a big process guy. Tony Roten's my guy. He's an OG process guy. And losing guys like Covington and Sarge, it's sad because those are guys who had been there since the beginning. But at the end of the day, this trade did make you better. Jimmy Butler's one of the best 15 to 10 players in the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somewhere around that range. And whenever you add a guy like that, your team's going to get better. He's a dog defensively. He's able to create his own shot. Yes, you say he's not known for his 3-point shooting, but I mean, he's going to make open shots if you give him to him. You put a guy like that next to Simmons and Embiid, they're going to find a way to win. Those are 3 really, really, really good players. And they still don't have, it's not like they have scrubs outside
Right.
of that. JJ Redick's a great shooter. Mike Muscala is a pretty average NBA player. They've got guys that can play outside of those guys. So I think for sure that this puts the Celtics I think to me right now it puts the Sixers into number 2. I think it's Raptors, Sixers, Celtics.
Yeah, and I will take I will take something that I heard on the Bill Simmons podcast, and I think was a great point, is that doesn't Philly just fit Jimmy Butler so much better?
sure.
Not the team, but the city. I mean, just being
Blue
on
collar.
Philly. I mean, just being on Philly, a guy who causes a bunch of controversy, a bunch of trouble. If any city's going to embrace that guy, it's Philly. And so I think that it's a remarkable situation for Jimmy Butler to get in. He couldn't be in a better situation, and it's great for him. I think that the Sixers are the 2 for me. I think right now in the East, the Raptors are fighting them for it. I think the Bucks have a little more to prove. And I will say that I think the Sixers, though, they're going to add one more piece. I think they're going to add one more piece, and I think it will be a shooter of some kind. But I think it's going to happen.
Well, they can
They'll be
make
adding
the
one
same
more.
have a
moves they did last
realistic
year.
name in
Just
mind?
pick up veteran shooters that when they go
Sure,
on waivers, they
sure.
can pick up another Bellinelli, another Ilyasova.
Yeah, and I think they will.
Trevor Ariza to the.
They're
Trevor
gonna
Ariza.
add like a better 5th guy to that starting lineup potentially. They're just gonna add a better choice. I think they're gonna be fine. It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch.
Good show, boys. Illinois football plays on Saturday, 2:30 against Iowa. Illinois basketball will tip off their first game against Gonzaga in the Maui tournament. You can catch Brian Binns' Seattle Seahawks They'll kick off against the Green Bay Packers tonight. I'm a big Seahawks fan tonight. I want the Bears to get as much ahead of the
and
Packers
Brian Bince's
as possible.
content on Maui, dailyillini.com, or download the Daily Illini app on Google Play Store and on the App Store.
That's the show, boys. Eli Schuster, thank you very much. Brian Bince, great today. Alex Aguilera, awesome behind the table, running everything for us. I'm Isaac Trotter. Thanks for joining us. You can listen to us after Thanksgiving break, so we'll be back not next week, but the week after that to break down all of Illinois basketball, Illinois football. Thanks so much for joining us on Illini Drive, WPGU 107.1.